Alright folks, welcome back to the channel. You found KGB Customs LLC, home of some of the finest custom handguns on the YouTube, also on Rumble. What we have here today is a pretty outstanding custom piece. The gun is a Colt Shooting Master, so a pre-war Colt target pistol that was also customized prior to World War II, most likely, by King's, D.W. King's, Dean King's gun site out of San Francisco, California. Now we know a fair bit about this gun because I did get a Colt archive letter on this gun, partly because being a Depression era Colt and a high-end Colt at that, this would have been Colt's premier revolver in the day. The Colt Shooting Master, there's some argument about when they were introduced. I'm going to stick with the 1931 date because I believe that's when it was introduced to shooters at Camp Perry, and then following Perry was in the Colt catalog. More on the Shooting Master in a minute. Let's talk about the gun's history. So the gun, per the Colt letter here, shipped to a gentleman by the name of Cash Ellis in Lena, Illinois. You look up Lena, Illinois. It is a small speck on the map, somewhere west of Chicago. Doing more digging on Lena, I dug up that it was a hotbed for competitive shooting, with lots of folks traveling from Chicago and down from Wisconsin and even over from Missouri to shoot competitively there. It was home of the second largest small bore competitive shoot, second only to Camp Perry. So that's a pretty big map dot when you start talking about shooting competitions. To be second only to Camp Perry, even in the 30s, was certainly something they could hang their hat on in Lena. The gentleman who ordered this pistol, Cash Ellis, not a lot of, there's a fair bit of history on him. His daughter was, oddly enough, a local historian, I found out. Read a lot of newspaper articles that she wrote. She wrote very little about her dad, which is a shame, mostly for me. I'm sure he wasn't maybe the most interesting historical figure in north central Illinois, but she wrote a lot of accounts. I wish I would have had this gun in time to talk to her before she passed, but that's the way life goes. So Cash Ellis was, I believe, an insurance salesman, from what I can gather, an agent of an insurance company, and he competed in multiple disciplines of shooting. Obviously, he competed in bullseye shooting. That would have been the sport for this, or USRA type shoots. The one it was written about the most in newspaper articles for receiving trophies and placing in competitions was small bore rifle shooting, which leads to reason being Lena, Illinois hosted the second largest in the country of small bore shoots. So that explains certainly the who on this gun. You wouldn't expect this gun to be ordered by just any Joe Schmo, and I'm glad it was an individual order, because that gives us more history on the gun, certainly, than a gun shop ordering it. I'm always interested to read letters, Colt letters from prior to the Gun Control Act of '68, but certainly prior to World War II, when there were a lot more individual shipments. Now, lots of pre-war guns still shipped to distribution network and gun shops and hardware stores and stuff, and the trail often goes dead there. But when you can get an individual shipped Colt on the letter, it allows you to really research who owned this gun first, kind of thing. And he was a competitive shooter who was very active in the 30s. I forget exactly when he passed away, but I want to say late 50s, early 60s. Anyway, that's the who on the gun. A little bit more about the gun itself. It is a King's Super Target. So it has the full-length rib reflector front sight. We've got a red post front sight on there. No white outline in the rear, which I kind of appreciate that sight picture personally. It is chambered in 38 special. We've got a set of Lou Sanderson wraparound thumb rest target grips. These grips do cover the back strap, which is not super common on a new service-sized gun, which the Shooting Master is, because they're a big gun to begin with. But it is super thin on that covering, and there was a repaired crack here that I see. But nonetheless, they are proper vintage in style for the gun and the sport. We have a really nicely offset checkered hammer spur there, the King's cockeyed hammer. It is marked on the hammer. The gun has the short action conversion as well, which you see there. The hammer comes back and stops, you know, a little over an eighth, a little under a quarter of an inch from coming clear back to bottoming out on the frame, which is standard action for one of these would. And the double action is really quite beautifully tuned on this gun, which Shooting Masters were well-tuned guns to begin with. As I said, they were Colt's premier revolver in the day, second only really to the officer's model target and what they came from, the new service target. And the new service target really didn't have any action work done. It just had better sights than the standard new service. The new service target came before. The new service target had similar production numbers. There were 3,400 new service targets believed to be manufactured from about 1900 to 1940, and the Shooting Master, there were 3,500 approximately manufactured in the 31 to 41 range. Of course, Colt stopping civilian sales at the beginning of World War II to feed the war effort, both in long guns and handguns. Well, machine guns and handguns, I suppose. So the Colt Shooting Master, introduced in 31 or 28, depending on what you read. I'm going to stick with 31. Was a premium, and these were all hand-fitted revolver designed for target shooting. They were built, of course, on the Colt new service target frame, and they had refined actions, all hand-fit. All the internals of this gun would all be mirror polished from the factory. And it showed, even during the Depression, that Colt was catering to the demand for precision firearms for action, or not action sports, target sports, like USRA, the NRA outdoor shoots, and gallery matches. So Colt was already kind of catering to the target market with the new service target and the officer's model target. But this really kind of was their culmination, was their top of the line stuff. So they were certainly up against it, with Smith & Wesson having, of course, target sighted end frames, and they even, you know, pushed back on the introduction of the registered Magnum by chambering this gun in 357 Magnum. Which they introduced, I believe, in 36, which was shortly after Smith & Wesson's introduction of the 357. There was a American Rifleman issue in September of 31 that kind of introduced this gun to the public, and as I've said in other videos, you know, that in those days, you know, the radio and print magazines were really where gun guys would get their information. So you know, getting that American Rifleman once a month or once a quarter, I forget how it was printed back then, was really how you found out about the new stuff. Especially if you lived in a small town like Lena, Illinois. you may not have known this gun existed if not for that, because your local hardware store probably wouldn't have carried it in a rural community. The the gun was of course shown off at Camp Perry in the early years, and likely many early ones will letter to being sold at Camp Perry. A lot of people find it a little odd that Colt and Smith & Wesson would introduce these high-level guns during the Depression, but there was lots of folks who still had lots of money at that time, believe it or not, despite the hardships that much of the middle class was experiencing. What is the saying? The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But so initially it was introduced in 38 Special, which this gun is, and 2,500 of the 3,500 produced were in 38 Special. Only 156 were chambered in 45 Colt, roughly 250 in 45 ACP, 44 Special, 94 units, and only 500 manufactured in 357 Magnum. There was 3 or 4 other chamberings that they did one-offs of, very, very rare. There are at least 2 known nickel-plated examples from the factory, so super rare there. At the time, in 1931, this gun was introduced at $52.50. The average annual income in the United States at that time was $1,800. So you go ahead and do the math there. That's a couple weeks' wages, certainly, in the time to be able to afford a gun like this, and then to be able to afford to send it off for customization, which probably nearly doubled the cost. By the time Mr. Ellis shipped it to California, shipped it back, etc., and then of course outfitted it with custom grips. Production ceased for World War II. We didn't really see another target gun from Colt until the early 50s. The officer's model Special was brought out, and in large frame guns, it really wasn't a large frame gun, I suppose. The Trooper and the Colt 357 were target-sided guns offered in 4 6-inch barrels. Those were introduced in 53, the 357 model. So we really didn't see another large bore target revolver from Colt, I suppose, until the Anaconda. As far as a 45 frame, which the new service is a 45 capable frame. So we were without a large frame double action from Colt for many, many years. But the Colt new service is a big old revolver. They are double action capable, but without tuning like this one has. The standard double action pull on a new service, in my opinion, is quite atrocious when compared to an end frame, even an old long action end frame. So this gun has the benefit of the tuning, has the benefit of the short action. So the pull to release is much less on this short action gun than on a stock action. So the hammer releases earlier in this gun than it would in a non-tuned gun. These guns are highly collected today. Matter of fact, this one, before I even had it in the hands, I shared it with a good friend and client of mine who is into new services and is into King's guns pretty heavy. And his words were, "Don't even take a picture of it, just ship it to me." So this one is heading to him. We did a little trade action, and it's heading off to him. And I'm honored to have it in his collection and to have handled it. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. There will be some more videos, boxes that pop up here at the end. We ask you to subscribe if you haven't, and continue to tune in. We're going to try and keep dropping at least a video a week here. for a full-length video. And of course, check on our shorts. A lot of that is just kind of what's passing through that maybe isn't a custom gun deserving of a full-length video. We hope you enjoyed this and learned something right along with us about the history of the Shooting Master. And of course, anytime you can get a high-level gun like a Shooting Master and have it King's Custom, makes it just 5 times as cool to me. Thanks for tuning in.